Podcast City Network.
What is up, beautiful people? Welcome to episode 165 of the Nest Podcast. It's your boy, Brandon Brewer, back in the studio once again with the Zach Bills. Zach, what's up, my man? How you doing?
Good. Glad to have you back here.
It is definitely good to be back. I was out for about, 2 weeks or so, and I made my triumphant return on Champ to Champ this past Saturday, but it is good to be back here live on Monday night on the Nest Podcast. Special thanks to our buddies Adam Ballesteros and Lucas Smith for filling in for me while I'm gone. I listened to both episodes. They were fantastic. If you haven't heard them, go back and listen to them. You and Adam had a really good conversation about college football and about specifically coaching in college football and how it differs to NFL. And I found that to be very, very interesting. And then with Lucas, I know you guys talked a lot about the Cardinals. So if you're a baseball fan, if you like the Cardinals, then go and listen to that. Listen to his podcast, which is all about the Cardinals, and it's fantastic. But Zach, it's time. It's playoff baseball time. It is October. There is only one October, and we are here. We're in it. And it is October 4th. 2021. So shout out Harvey. Happy birthday to him. It's his birthday today. He gets the rivalry for his birthday. How awesome of a gift is that for a baseball fan?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one that is written in the storybooks for sure. The Red Sox Yankees, one game, winner moves on. That's going to be a very good game to watch. And of course, as we might have mentioned on the show that I did with Lucas, Cardinals are in a wild card game against the Dodgers, which we didn't get to find out until Sunday, which I'm at the same time excited as I am nervous about that game. Obviously, the Dodgers are a big juggernaut. We're going to be facing Max Scherzer. It's going to take basically everything that the Cardinals have to show for to win that one. I'm excited nonetheless, and I think anything can happen in a one game. So we'll just wait and see and hope everything works out.
Do you know what the pitching matchup is and all that stuff yet, or is that yet to be determined?
Wainwright versus Scherzer.
Wainwright versus Scherzer. Wow, that is going to be a good one. Scherzer paying off dividends for the Dodgers who acquired him at the trade deadline. Of course, I think it was more of necessity than anything because they had to fill the gap that Trevor Bauer wasn't able to fill. We talked about Bauer early on in the season and how, this will probably blow over in no time and he'll be back. He has not pitched since.
Yeah.
And this is a dude that was expected $40 million this year. Pretty wild that he didn't even get a chance to play.
Yeah, that's crazy. I definitely thought that MLB would kind of turn a blind eye until some, charges were actually made through the law. But they took it upon themselves to give him a leave of absence. And I think that's been indefinite until it's all cleared up, or I don't know how that's going to happen. But I mean, like you said, he's been out ever since then. There's no sign of him coming back. So pretty crazy.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen there. And I guess it's something we'll have to keep an eye on in the off season because it doesn't appear to be anything that'll be resolved before the end of the year, before the World Series takes place.
No.
And speaking of the World Series, we mentioned the Cardinals and the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the Yankees in the wild card round, which should be two phenomenal games. I know you play on Wednesday, the Red Sox and Yankees play on Tuesday. So that's 2 nights of baseball that are going to be exciting. And then the ALDS will start on Thursday. And the NLDS, I assume, would be on Friday then. And moving on, the winner of the Red Sox and the Yankees are going to go up against the 100-win Tampa Bay Rays, which that's not an easy task for anybody, really, because that's a team that just finds a way to win day in and day out. So what do you think about that, Zach?
That's a very interesting matchup. The Rays have been a difficult team to play all year. And I mean, for all accounts, I can't really point to one thing that explains their success. I mean, they just find guys that work. They they let Blake Snell go, which was a strange move. I mean, a Cy Young winner, letting him go was kind of strange. They also let Charlie Morton go, and yet here we are talking about them winning their division. They're now in the playoffs, awaiting a opponent, and I think it's going to be a tough game. I think the wild card is going to be a tough game, and whoever wins that is going to have a tough road through that series to move on.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Charlie Morton thing, that whole deal was weird because remember last year in the World Series, he was cruising and then they just abruptly pulled him out. And there was a little bit of a feedback, a little bit of stink from all that. And then next thing we knew, he was being traded. They lost Charlie Morton. They're still able to get back to the postseason. They still had the best record in the American League. It's amazing what they do in Tampa Bay on such a minimal roster salary.
Yep.
They keep churning out winning baseball teams. And then on the other side of the American League Division Series, we have the White Sox at the Houston Astros, which that should be another phenomenal series as well. I know Adam is probably going to tune in to try to check out some of the Houston Astro games. I hope that maybe something will happen where he'll eventually get hooked on baseball and we can have him on more often during the summer because he's a great person to have on the show.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't care about baseball.
Yeah, I tried to get the baseball bug in him, and hopefully something can happen. I do think that this series is going to be interesting because you've got two of the old timer managers going against each other, Dusty Baker and Tony La Russa. Lots of knowledge between those two. I think both of these teams are good. I want to give the edge here to the Astros.
Yeah.
But I think anything can happen. I think the fact that the Red Sox have been able to be successful, even though your mean Mercedes basically said, I'm done. That was a big hit to them. They've had a lot of injuries throughout the year, but they've still been good. But I do give the nod to the Astros.
Yeah, I think I do too. In that matchup, I do see the Astros moving on. What about the I mean, I know we have to get through this game first, the Red Sox and the Yankees, but who do you see ultimately winning that game? And then who do you see coming out of this side of that bracket in the American League?
I see the Red Sox winning. I think the Yankees rely too heavily on the home run ball, and they're not playing at Yankee Stadium. So I don't think that's going to really necessarily benefit them a whole lot. I don't think their pitching staff has what it takes to ward off the Red Sox. And then ultimately after that, oh boy, it's going to be tough to beat the Rays. I think it really is. That one might be just a full series. You know, it might come down to the last game, that's a 5-game series, right?
The DS, yes.
Yeah. That could go the distance. I really can't say either way. I kind of want to say the Rays just simply because they've been so tough all year. But that's going to be a tough series for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. With the Red Sox Yankees matchup, the key to victory for the Red Sox, in my opinion, is getting to the Yankees bullpen as quickly as possible. They will be facing Garrett Cole, so that is going to be a bit of a challenge for the first few innings. But if they can get to him and get to that bullpen early, then that stands so much better for them. Nathan Eovaldi is going for the Red Sox. He's been pretty good against the Yankees, and he's been very good at home this year. So I do think that the Red Sox did themselves a huge favor by winning those games that they needed to win at the end of the year and get that home field advantage in this wild card matchup.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to definitely play a good part in it.
Over on the other side, we've already talked about the Dodgers and the Cardinals, and the winner of this matchup, they have a pretty tough road ahead of them because then they have to go to San Francisco and play the Giants, who have the best record in Major League Baseball. They lit it up all year long, and they surprised everyone, including us. So if your Cardinals do happen to make it through LA, I know you and Lucas said that you would rather play the Giants because you actually played them pretty well over the season. Do you still feel that way?
I do. We had 2 series against the Giants this year, and we won both series. That was surprising in and of itself, just the fact that we were able to beat one of the best teams in baseball. I don't know if that's going to correlate, obviously, in October. It's a whole different ballgame, but that does give me hope. I think the huge milestone is going to be to beat the Dodgers. And they've got weapons for days. That's going to be the huge hump for me. But you can't count out the Giants either. They're a very good team, but I do like the Cardinals' chances simply because of the history this year.
Yeah. Okay, good. Speaking of history, we do have a historic matchup in the NLDS that's already set between the Atlanta Braves and the Milwaukee Brewers. Courtesy of Ryan Schmidt on Sportszilla, this will be the first time that the Braves play a playoff game in Milwaukee since they won the World Series back in the 1950s. So that's a cool little tidbit of history. Back when the Braves were the Milwaukee Braves, they played the World Series there and won it in the 50s. This will be their first playoff game back in the state of Wisconsin. So that'll be pretty cool. Pretty neat little historical fact. And these are two teams that they should put on a pretty good show.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Brewers have the advantage in their pitching. They're going to have very good pitchers. Obviously, they've got Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff as their starters, and Josh Hader as their closer. That's going to be tough to hit against. But I also think that the Braves have kind of a quietly good team. There for a while, obviously the Mets were the number 1 team in their division, and then they kind of fell off, and the Braves took their position that we thought that they would, and they ended up winning that division. I do think that the Brewers are probably ultimately going to come out of this one on top simply because of that pitching. But I also wouldn't be shocked if the Braves somehow find a way to get to that bullpen and beat up on the bullpen, because apart from those 2 starters, I can't really name many people on their bullpen. I think their mission is to get a lot of length out of their starters and go straight to Josh Hader. Their setup guy, I can't remember his name, but he's pretty significant for them. He's injured, so they, as far as I know, don't have many arms to count on in their bullpen. So that could be something that the Braves try to do.
Yeah, I could see that. The key to beating anybody really in these games is to get to that bullpen, wear the bullpen out, have those guys pitch on short rest, on back-to-back nights, on 3 nights in a row, or whatever you can make them do. Really flex on them and make that be the weakness. The Brewers, they have a pretty good bullpen. I think it is a little bit better than the Atlanta Braves, but I think the Braves have a little more firepower. So it will be an interesting series. I'm looking forward to it. I know I'm going to be tuned into a lot of baseball over the next couple weeks, and we will definitely be talking about it more. Can you pick a winner? Can you pick a World Series winner out of this bunch right here, Zach?
Oh, goodness sakes. There's so many things that are up in the air. I think the Rays could go back to the World Series, but I don't know if they're going to win, because like last year, they let the analytics and all that weird stuff get to them, and they made some decisions that were not good. A winner? Gosh, I don't know. I could also see the Astros making it. They have a very good team full of good bats. It's super hard for me to pick a winner. Do you have any ideas?
I mean, of course, I'm going to say the Boston Red Sox are going to run the table and go all the way. But if for some reason they do stumble along the way, I could see the Rays actually being the team to beat.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they're just sneaky good, and for whatever reason, they've had a good team for several years now. I think if they can learn from their mistakes last year and let the game unfold as it does and put the right pieces in the right place at the right time, they could win it. I think they could have won last year had they played a little bit smarter, but it is what it is, and we'll see what happens this year.
Agree. Zach, it appears that the NFL has their own wild card of their own, and that could be the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Perhaps we should call him a Wildcat. and that's Urban Meyer. This dude was recently caught out at a club in which he owns called Urban's Playground, I believe is what it was, there in Columbus, Ohio. After the Thursday night football game in Cincinnati against the Bengals, he opted to stay in Ohio, go on over to Columbus, hang out. He needed to go and have a drink or two, ended up out on the dance floor where he was videoed getting grinded upon by a young college co-ed. Oh boy. Heart problems in 3, 2, 1. Zach, what is your take on this?
Yeah, I think Mrs. Meyer is gonna call for his retirement here soon. Geez, have we not heard this before? It seems like a broken record at this point. He just, for whatever reason, he's that kind of guy, I guess, and it doesn't change no matter what level of football he's playing at. A huge distraction for a team that already is struggling, and I think they really thought that bringing in a solid coach with a good background and a good game plan would really turn things around for Jacksonville. Obviously that hasn't really happened. And now you've got this BS happening on the sidelines. And that's what everyone is focusing on. He very well may lose the trust or whatever of his locker room. And I'm sure the media is going to be all over this for a while. So just one more blemish on that team that's been struggling for several years now.
Yeah, and if you're going to go out to the strip club, if you're going to, or not the strip club, but the bar, if you're going to go out, you're going to go have a few drinks, at least be aware of your surroundings. I mean, it's 2021. Everybody has a cell phone in their pocket. Everybody's looking for that next viral moment. And if you're somebody the caliber of Urban Meyer, people are going to be paying attention to you whenever you go out. Why put yourself in that situation? If you're going to go out to the bar, stay in your little VIP booth wherever you are. If you need something, send somebody out to get it for you. Have them bring it back to you so you can stay around your close-knit group so that you don't end up in situations like this. As from what I've heard, as far as the team goes, he came out and he apologized for his behavior and for being a distraction. The team's just like, hey, we don't care. Do whatever you want to do. We just want to try to win some football games and all that stuff. But you're right. This is still a distraction because it's messing with his home life. He's going to be thinking about other things other than coaching the Jacksonville Jaguars, which they need all the help that they can get. They don't need any other distraction whatsoever. So he's definitely shooting himself in the foot. I guess USC won't be calling now, though.
No, yeah, I imagine that this will probably be his last stop. It's not like he really did a whole hell of a lot. Anyway, I mean, sure, Ohio State won the first playoff championship or whatever, but other than that, I mean, I think they got the courtesy put in just to have someone else other than an SEC team in the playoff. He didn't really make an impact there, at least in my opinion. I think they have their success to be. I think their success is because of their recruiting. I don't think Urban Meyer necessarily made an impact there, and I don't think he's making an impact here in Jacksonville. I think his best years were with Florida, with that team that went on to win the national title, and then after that, he's kind of just been riding on that name ever since then, and every stop he makes, it's not really been productive. So, and there's always been these little things that we've seen now, these little distractions where he gets caught up with something and he has to retire or whatever it might be. And there's always just some little distraction, and he never really makes the organization any better than it was.
No, and that's a shame because he has the potential and he has the pedigree of being known as one of these great coaches, but he just can't get out of his own way.
Right.
Let's move on from that topic. We don't need to beat that in. Every other talking head out there has been talking about the Urban Meyer situation. So the Cowboys beat the previously undefeated Carolina Panthers 36-28. Now, this was a game that I was forced to watch because it was one of the few games that were on Sunday at that time slot. I was impressed. Dak spread the ball around as he was passing it around. He had 4 touchdown passes to 4 different receivers. Zeke Elliott added a touchdown. this Cowboys team, they're now sitting at 3-1 with wins over the Chargers, the Eagles, and the Panthers. Like I said, the Panthers were previously undefeated, and a close loss against the Tampa Bay Bucks in Tampa Bay. Are the Cowboys for real?
I think so. I think it's safe to say that they are definitely for real as long as Dak is healthy. He's the cornerstone for that team.
Sure.
I don't think you can rely on Zeke, but I think he's done a little bit more than in recent memory. And I think they need that too desperately, because I think once teams kind of figure out Dak, it might be an issue. But I think if Zeke can keep the defenses honest, then that just opens everything up, and that makes Dak that much more of a weapon. But yeah, I think this offense is absolutely legit. They've beaten some good teams. I mean, the Chargers are no slouch.
No.
And going toe to toe with the Bucks was a legitimate, showing of their talent. And I think, as much as we like to, crap on the Cowboys for being a dumb organization, at least for right now, they're clicking.
Yeah. And Sam Darnold, he looks like $1 million there in Carolina. Man. He's definitely showing why he was a number 1 draft pick, albeit not for the team that drafted him. He's doing great. Is this is the start of his career there in Carolina? Is that the sign of good things to come, in your opinion?
It seems like a good fit. I did not expect him to do this well with this team. But I think if they can kind of build around him a little bit, they might have something here, because he's looking great. I mean, and of course, I think it's hard for any quarterback to do well in the Jets organization, but he found a way out. He's doing very well. And I think if he can get a few more pieces going, a few more offensive pieces, I think they can be a very good team, because like you said, they were undefeated until now. And I don't think they could have said that had Sam Darnold not been their quarterback.
Well, and you sniped him off the waiver wire pile at the exact right time, because right now he's still only owned in 18.3% of ESPN leagues. I guarantee after this 30-point performance that he just put up against the Cowboys, that number is going to be steadily rising. So all of you fantasy owners out there with quarterback issues, Sam Darnold is one to watch. Speaking of Darnold and where he was drafted to, when was the last time that you heard anybody say this? Both football teams from New York won a game.
I can't say.
It's been a long time since both of those teams won, and to beat all, they both won in overtime against teams that should have steamrolled them. Of course, the Jets beat the Titans in overtime 27-24. The Titans were without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. It showed big time because they were not able to do anything offensively. Derrick Henry did have a pretty decent day, even though it was slow by his standards. He only racked up about 150 yards. So he had no help at all with the passing game. Tannehill couldn't find anybody open. The Jets defense was swarming. The Jets were able to get turnovers. They were able to drive the football. They were able to score points. It's crazy to see the Jets actually playing football like a real football team. And then the Giants beat the Saints in New Orleans and ruined their homecoming in the Superdome, beat them in overtime 27-21. Pretty wild to see both of those teams going at it like that.
Yeah, it's super wild. I did catch a little bit of that Jets-Titans game, and one of the announcers was saying that the Jets have an underrated defense. And I think that's true. Obviously, the Titans were without Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, which I think hurt them significantly. But you have to give it up to him. I mean, Derrick Henry should be lighting up the scoreboard against the Jets, but he didn't. And I get it. That was probably their only move that they could have made without their 2-star wide receivers. But nonetheless, the Jets were able to do what they could, and that was enough to beat this team. Wild to say that. And I think it's also just as crazy to think that the Saints lost in New Orleans to the Giants, who we've kind of all been crapping on because they've been lackluster as well. It's crazy. I think the Saints really do have a lot of questions, and I don't know if Jameis Winston is to blame or whatever, but he's very up in the air. He's very on or off, and it seems like he's been off these past few games.
Yeah, we have been crapping on the Giants, and probably it's a little bit unfair because Daniel Jones right now is the 11th ranked quarterback in fantasy football, and he's only owned in 32.5% of ESPN leagues. So this is a guy that's been balling all year
Yeah.
under the radar. He's been throwing to guys like Sterling Shepard, and doing it pretty much without Barkley as well. Barkley's
Mhm.
just started getting going, and they've still been out there. They've been playing good football. The NFC East is actually turning it around this season, it appears.
Yeah, it really
Um,
is.
in a game that we both had going the other way, the Cardinals remain undefeated by beating the Rams. We both thought that the Rams would be able to keep that offense in check, but turns out we were way wrong on that one. The Cardinals were flying high on Sunday, and is Kyler Murray the new front runner for MVP?
He's at least in the very top of the talks, because if you can beat that Rams defense, you're an absolutely legitimate offense. He's the real deal, and it's been crazy to watch because I did not expect that at all, especially from this defense. I mean, they had all the opportunity in the world to kind of shut this down, and it didn't happen. I think that was a huge shocker. Crazy stuff to think that the Cardinals have such a good team. And I think it's an offensive driven team, obviously, but they, like we've said before, have a very good defense now with the addition of JJ Watt. That's a sneaky good team. Watch out for them for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, in this game, Murray completed 24 of 32 passes for 268 yards, a couple touchdowns, and he also rushed for 39 more yards. Dude's lighting it up through the air with his feet. He's scoring points. He's made fantasy owners very happy this year. Um, his low game was 18.54 and his high was 33.56. He's been lighting it up pretty much all year long. I could definitely say that Kyler Murray is in the talks for MVP early on this season, and that's something that a lot of people wouldn't see coming.
No, absolutely. He's definitely solidified himself as one of those top tier mobile quarterbacks.
Yep,
We always talk about Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, but I think you have to give credit to Kyler Murray here too. He's definitely one of those big dogs.
he sure is. And then, of course, we had the big one last night. Of course, that is the most hyped regular season game of all time. Tom Brady making his return to the house that Tom built there in Foxborough. And it was a night that TB12 will always remember because he went on to break the what was it, the passing yardage record that
Yeah.
was previously held by Drew Brees. He went on to battle against Bill Belichick for the first time, got the win, of course, whatever. But it was really Mac 10 that stole the show. Even though the Pats lost the game, Mac Jones proved that he is the man for the Patriots going forward. He went out there and he dueled with Tom Brady in a very high pressure, high stakes game in the rain, in the cold there in New England. A lesser man would have, cracked under the pressure, but he went out there and performed and had the team within striking distance of winning that game. And, Mac doesn't have the talent that Tom Brady has surrounding him, and Mac still went out there and outperformed him. Tom Brady has guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones. Normally, he has Rob Gronkowski out there with him as well. It looks like somebody got a hold of their parents' credit card and just started buying up all of the Madden Dynasty team.
Yep.
But this is who Mac has. He has guys like Jacoby Myers, Brandon Bolden, Kendrick Bourne, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar is one of those guys that he's probably most famous for this viral moment when in Philadelphia there was a fire going on and somebody threw some shade at him. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Yeah,
and was assisting people down. My man just started throwing babies out the window. We was catching them, unlike Aguilar and his mishaps. I like to put that out there.
So what was happening was there was a fire, and this guy that we just showed on our live feed, he walked up, saw that there was a fire. A man was out of the window screaming that his kids were up there. He needed to get them out. About that time, the fire truck pulls up. They get the ladder up there. The firemen are grabbing the kids and basically just dropping them to the people below, and the people are catching them. This guy says, we were catching them, unlike Aguilar. He threw some mad shade at him, and that's what he was remembered for in Philadelphia. And now he's one of the go-to guys for Mac Jones. So if that tells you anything about the caliber of talent that he has surrounding him, that's what you got. But it is what it is. Mac Jones went 31 of 40 for 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception that was kind of tipped and batted around. So it wasn't really a bad throw. It was just a good defensive play. At one point in the third quarter, Mac had 19 straight completions. He was on fire, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. This was such a important game for him, and I couldn't have expected anything better from him. Rookie quarterback in the rain, under the brightest lights that he's seen yet, probably. Obviously, the legend of Tom Brady is coming back to Foxborough. I mean, all of the pressure was on Mac, and I think he did as well as you could have. And like you said, he doesn't have the talent behind him like Tom Brady does. He played as well as I could have possibly expected. This was a tough game. Playing football in the rain, being a quarterback in the rain, trying to throw passes with a wet ball cannot be easy. If he had a little bit more help, I think this would be a completely different story. I hope they do get him some help. It's an interesting situation there because, you know, with the moves that they made, getting those tight ends, we kind of thought that it would be a bit of a success story than it is. Maybe it's something they can just work out throughout the season. I don't really know, but I still am not very upset at his showing. Like I said, he did as much as he possibly could. I think this was a very pivotal. Jesus, I cannot say that word. Pivotal game for his career, because I think all of the questions have been put to bed now. I think he is a legitimate QB1. I think he's the Patriots' future right now, and I think those bright lights games are the games where you prove that. A lot of guys, especially the younger guys, kind of crack under that pressure, and I think he did perfectly fine.
Yeah, I think this is a Patriots team that they're in a good place. They're maybe not going to be, you know, Super Bowl contenders this year, but give them a couple years, I think they'll be there. You know, they are 1-3 right now, but probably the best 1-3 team of all time.
Right.
They could very easily be 3-1. They narrowly lost to the Dolphins in week 1. Then they could have won last night against the defending Super Bowl champs. By the way, the defending Super Bowl champs that held Patrick Mahomes and that high-flying offense to next to nothing in the Super Bowl. And they came out just barely on the outskirts of that. They get a little bit more of that clutch gene in them, then they'll be able to pull out these last-minute victories and all that stuff. The things that we see Tom Brady do time and time again, Mac Jones is eventually going to be doing that for this team, and a lot of these close losses will become wins. And I have no doubt in my mind, they have a pretty easy test coming up this next week. They play against the Texans, so that's a team that I think is very beatable, and it should be a good opportunity for Mac Jones to continue developing. If you noticed last night when they were playing, at first they were trying to run the ball and trying to force it. But whenever they opened up the playbook, let Mac just drop back and start throwing the ball to the open guy, they started moving the ball very well.
Yeah.
They had, on one drive, they had 2 first and 20, second and 20 situations, and they converted both of them. They were able to move the ball on this defense. They were able to sit back and pick them apart. And this is a rookie quarterback that was going through his progressions. He would start left and he would check down to the right, or he would start right and then check down to his running back who was in the middle. He wasn't forcing the ball. He wasn't doing anything stupid with it. This is the best 1-3 team in the NFL, bar none.
Right.
Tom Brady, for what it's worth, went 22 of 43 passing for 269 yards. Didn't throw a single touchdown, but he also didn't throw an interception. In his lackluster performance, like we said, he did become the all-time passing leader, and he also became the 4th quarterback in NFL history to get a win against every franchise. So he joins Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, and
Peyton Manning.
Brett Favre. No, yeah, it's not Phillip Rivers. It's not Phillip Rivers. It is Peyton Manning. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty special. I think one thing that a lot of people aren't necessarily putting a lot of attention on is the fact that the Patriots defense was able to hold Tom Brady and that Madden dynasty team to such a low scoring game. I mean, like you said, Tom Brady didn't have a touchdown pass. That's huge, I think.
And that's exactly what I was worried about on Champ to Champ, Zach, whenever I pitched the idea of, should I start Jameis Winston instead? It turns out I should have, because Winston scored a few more points, even though he didn't have a great game of his own right. That decision not to do that, I guess, kind of haunts me a little bit, because I could have had a few more points in fantasy and I could be sitting a little bit better. It's got me making crazy faces at my fantasy roster. I'm sitting there just looking at it like Steve Belichick looking at the field last night, making all kinds of weird faces, licking my lips. I used to work with a guy that I walked in one time, and he was making some of those faces, something like that, just staring at the computer screen, making a weird little, like, growling at it, licking his lips. I was like, what are you doing, dude? What in the world is going on? Every time I see Steve Belichick here, I think of that guy. So you know who you are.
Yes. I love his mullet. I mean, Steve Belichick has just gone, I guess I don't even know. He's created a character for himself almost.
Yeah, so we talked about the wild card. Then we talked about the wild cat that was Urban Myers. I guess Steve Belichick is the wild man.
Yeah, I think so. What is he, the defensive coordinator?
He is the DC, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have anybody as a mentor, Bill Belichick, I would say it's probably top on that list. Crazy faces or not, I think the Patriots defense is definitely doing well. I mean, the Bucks game is point proven on that one.
For sure. Any other games that stand out in your Sunday there, Zach?
No. The Chiefs, which I always watch, blew out the Eagles, which I guess that wasn't really that big of a deal.
Yeah, they won 42-30. I guess the Eagles may have come on a little bit late and scored some points.
Yeah, they had some garbage touchdowns. I do think that Jalen Hurts looks good, but like we've said before, he doesn't have enough help to be good, but he did have some good rushing attempts. I think he also had a rushing touchdown. But yeah, the Chiefs are back to their normal selves. I think a lot of people were hitting the panic button on that team because they weren't really performing up to par. I think they figured out something, either that or just the Eagles defense isn't much to talk about, which I think is also a possibility. Nonetheless, the Chiefs are kind of getting back to what we kind of thought was going to happen, was just the sheer offensive team that they are, and they really don't have a defense to speak of.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about, Zach. The Eagles are also 1-3. I put the Patriots in a much higher class than I put these Eagles in.
Oh yeah,
the Eagles, everyone is like, oh yeah, they stink, they're no good. But when you look at the Patriots, they're like, there's something there, and that's me not being biased. That's me trying to be objective and look at it like, okay, this is a team that they could actually win a few more games than people are thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jalen Hurts, I told you, I knew he was going to have that kind of a game, and he threw for almost 400 yards. He rushed for nearly 50 yards. He's putting up monster performances week in and week out, mainly because he's the only one on that team that's reliable.
Yeah.
He has been hitting Dallas Goedert quite a bit this season. His tight end. Goddard's had a really good sneaky season there for the Eagles, which I've been happy with because I've been the benefactor on fantasy. But other than that, I don't really see the Eagles doing too much more.
No, yeah, I think his talent there is getting wasted a little bit. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I mean, they are a far cry from the Super Bowl winning team that they were a couple of years ago, and I get it. You know, that was a almost a fluke of a year anyway because Nick Foles came in and took that team to high places. But nonetheless, I do think that Jalen Hurts is a good player. He could do some good things for them, but they absolutely need to build on that. He definitely needs to be more than just he needs to have more than just himself to rely on. That's not going to really cut it for an entire season. So I think he'll still be okay, but as far as the team as a whole, yeah, I don't expect them to do much, especially considering their division. They're not going to be able to compete with the Cowboys for sure.
No, the Cowboys are going to blow them away when they do play, so it's not even going to be fair. Let's move into our fantasy booms and busts for the week then, Zach, since we've kind of covered all the big games and all the important ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got one more big one later tonight that we'll kind of preview after we're done with our fantasy talk. But let's talk about fantasy quarterbacks. You know, we were just talking about him. Jalen Hurts. I told y'all on Champ to Champ that this guy was going to be a good pick for a starter this week, and he delivered. 28.18 points. Like I said, 387 yards, 46 yards on the ground. He had a couple of touchdowns. He scored you a lot of points. That's a guy that you can depend on. Go ahead and hammer him in. He's going to be a starter for a long time in this league.
Yep, absolutely. My boom is going to be Sam Darnold. I was the benefactor of that one myself. I saw him sitting out there on the waiver wire with a cool 20-something points last week. Ryan Tannehill has not really been doing a whole lot, and I knew going against this team without his top two wide receivers was not going to be good. So I was looking for a replacement. He completely blew my expectations out of the water. 31 points, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. 2 of those were rushing touchdowns, which is crazy to think about. One thing that did hurt him was 2 interceptions. But I think for a guy like him, who, like you said, was not picked up or he was only picked up in like 18% of leagues or whatever. Great to throw him in on there. Yeah, he really lit it up this week. Hopefully that can continue. I really don't know, but at least for this week, he lit it up for sure.
Yeah, and chances are, if you're listening out there and you need a quarterback, he's probably available. He's at least worth grabbing and stashing on your bench. Even if you do have a serviceable quarterback, having that 30-point week every now and then might be good for your bye weeks.
Yep.
My quarterback bust of the week is Baker Mayfield. Baker dropped 9.3 points. He was only 15 out of 33 passing for 155 yards. Now, with all the talent that the Browns have, I get it. They do hand the ball off to Chubbs. They hand the ball off to Hunt quite a bit, but they also throw out of the backfield. Landry not being in may hurt that a little bit. The chemistry with Odell Beckham Jr. may not be there yet, but for your starting quarterback to only drop 9.3 fantasy points, it ain't it. Yeah, they won the game, but fantasy owners are not happy about it, and Baker Mayfield is on my cut list. If you have him, go ahead and cut him loose. Pick up somebody else that's making points for you. Pick up somebody like Sam Darnold. Pick up somebody like a Daniel Jones that's available in about 60% of those leagues. I would even say look for somebody like a Jalen Hurts that's probably available in a good chunk of leagues as well.
Yeah, I mean, Baker Mayfield is an interesting case. I had a friend who's in Cleveland and obviously a Browns fan texting me during the game. It was just a heart attack game the whole time because they were just Brownsing, I guess. I didn't catch that game, but yeah, I think they barely kind of squeaked by. And I think if the Vikings had a little bit more of their stuff together, they probably would have won that game.
Yep. Who's your quarterback bust of the week, Zach?
Quarterback bust for me is going to be Tom Brady.
I feel that one.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. And I feel bad for kind of telling you that you should start Brady, but you would have only gained 2 more points if you would have started Jameis Winston.
Yeah, it's not that much.
Right. Tom Brady got 269 yards, no touchdowns. Like you said about Baker, for Tom Brady to have such a talent-filled offense and for him to not be able to capitalize on that hurts fantasy owners. He's been great for a few weeks now, and I think this is just one of those things that happens with him. He has on and off weeks, and this was just an off week.
Yeah, I think the emotions of that game, returning to Foxborough, playing in that weather, and that's the coldest that he's played in a long time. Plus, it was rainy, and Bill Belichick knows him, like I said on Champ to Champ, better than Giselle knows him. So he played the perfect defense against him all game long, was mixing up his looks so that Brady couldn't get a good read on anything. It definitely messed with him. And that was the result. And I was afraid of that going into it. I played him even though I said I thought that might happen. But like we said, he's been good all season long. He was the safer option between he and Jameis Winston. I'm in one of these boats where I probably need to start looking for a better backup.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea. It sucks because if Jameis Winston was serviceable, you could put him in as your week-to-week starter, and then on a good matchup, you could throw Tom Brady in there, because I do think Tom has the ability to put up some good points, but just it didn't happen this week for whatever reason.
Yep. And unfortunately, in our league, everybody's pretty quarterback stingy. So everybody's got 2 or 3 on their bench. So all the good ones are taken,
Right.
but there are guys out there that are available that put up significant points. And Matt Ryan was on our bench. He's got 29 points. He was in our waiver wire at least, but he's so undependable. You can't rely on that. Unreliable, not undependable, unreliable. My running back boom of the week is a guy that he didn't score the most points by any means, but he's starting to get utilized. And I feel like this is just the start of good things to come. And that's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He had 19.4 fantasy points this week. This is the second week in a row that he's rushed for over 100 yards. And he's also caught a touchdown for the second week in a row. This is how the Kansas City Chiefs need to use Clyde Edwards-Helaire. This is where he's going to be dominant. This is how it's going to open up the field for guys like Tyreek Hill, for Travis Kelce, for all of their other weapons. Once you get Helaire established as a legitimate running threat, this team is going to be even more scary than they already are.
Yep, 100% on that one. My running back boom is a guy who I definitely had not heard of until this week, and that's Cordarrelle Patterson for the Falcons. The Falcons were a huge shocker this week for how many points they put up, and I think that kind of goes to show that the Washington defense is a little bit overrated this year. Patterson put up 34.6 points, 34 yards, and the big takeaway is his 3 receiving touchdowns. Huge game for this guy. If you just so happen to put him on your roster, you're very thankful. I doubt this guy puts up that many numbers very often.
No, he won't, but he'll be the waiver wire darling of this week because not many people had him rostered. I'm checking right now. I believe that it's a low number. Actually, it's a lot higher than I thought. It's 73.9. Earlier last week, before he was announced as the starter, it was like, I don't know, 20 or something like that.
Yeah.
So now it's jumped up. It'll continue to jump up. He'll be in the 80s to 90s this next week because of this performance, but he's not going to post 30 points a week.
No,
it's just not going to happen. But yeah, he definitely boomed this week, and unfortunately, he boomed against me. So
yeah, rough.
My week sucked. I was down on a couple players, and I played against guys that played out of their shoes. My running back bust of the week is Nyheim Hines. We talked about it on Champ to Champ on how having 2 running backs from the same team isn't a good idea. And I hope our listener that was submitting the question that had both Jonathan Taylor and Hines in his lineup, I hope he opted to put somebody else in there because of our suggestion, because Taylor scored 20 plus points this week. Hines scored 1.1. He totaled 6 yards rushing and he fumbled the ball. So he definitely sucked it up. if he was in any kind of competition to split shares with Taylor, he definitely got blown out of the water this week, and he was non-factor in fantasy football.
Yeah, absolutely. My running back bust is going to be Dalvin Cook. He's still dealing with an ankle injury, and he did start the game against the Browns, but he might as well not have. He got 34 yards, and that's about it. This is one of the guys that was almost in every league a first round pick and a lot of people's first pick. It's tough whenever a guy like this goes down and then they kind of bring him back and they say he's good to go. They say he's going to start, and then he barely gets used and he barely touches the ball, and he's almost a wasted position on your lineup. That was the case this week. I do think he'll probably bounce back once that ankle gets right. But this week just was not the week to start him. And I think he was probably mistakenly put as a starter. That's going to happen, especially with these big name guys. Even if they're not 100%, I think the team's going to put them out there if they say they're good to go in hopes that they can get something going. But that just did not happen this week.
Yeah. I don't know why comments aren't coming through on here, but I see that Jared is saying that Daniel Jones is becoming his favorite fantasy quarterback pickup. I can see why, buddy. I can see why.
I'm sure he was extremely cheap to pick up as well.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, if you didn't draft him, he was sitting there waiting for you. So yeah, that's a great pickup that I don't think a lot of people expected him to do much of anything.
No. Yeah, Facebook's having some trouble, I guess, today, and our comments aren't coming through like they normally are. But I just checked on my feed on my phone, and we do have some comments out there.
Yeah, I figured.
Facebook's
been down basically all day today, so
yeah, they still got some bugs to work out, I guess. Oh well. Wide receiver boom for me is Scary Terry McLaurin for the Washington football team. He posted 30.3 points. He had 6 catches for 123 yards, and he got in the end zone twice. That's a heck of a game for Scary Terry, and he's picking up that rookie or that second-year quarterback or whatever he is in Heineke.
Yep, perfect. My boom is going to be Tyreek Hill.
Of course it is.
You might say, hey, how big of a boom could he be if he's one of the top tier wide receivers? The past 2 weeks, he's been double teamed and defenses have been able to kind of shut him down. And I was worried about that coming into this week, but it was no matter. He was completely available. He had 11 receptions, 186 yards, and obviously the big one is 3 touchdowns, which was huge. Had a monster game of 47.6 points. Finally made up for those 2 weeks of doing almost nothing. So that was a huge game for him.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was scrolling through the feeds on our league, and I saw that you were way up on points, and I was like, who's scoring so big for him? And I saw a 47 burger from Tyreek. I was like, well, I know Zach's sitting there happy. And then you also had 30 something from Darnold. So you had like 70 points real fast. My bust wide receiver also comes from the Chiefs, and it's Travis Kelce. Now, I know he's a tight end,
but wide receiver.
But he's a wide receiver for all intents and purposes. And he only got 6.3 points. He had 4 receptions for 23 yards. Now, I don't know if it was something that he just wasn't open, that the defense was keying in on him, and that's what allowed Tyreek Hill to be so open all game long, or if he just wasn't out there trying to get open, or what was the deal, because I didn't watch that game. But when I saw that Travis Kelce, who is normally Mr. Reliable in fantasy football, was only at 6.3 points near the end of the fourth quarter, I almost had a heart attack.
Yeah. I think he was the guy that was faced with the double team on that week. For whatever reason, they decided to shut him down instead of Tyreek Hill or anyone else. The ball did not go his way many times at all. And I think that's why I think Mahomes picked up on that and just wasn't going to force the issue. You're probably going to see that for the rest of the year with defenses going against the Chiefs. You've got to take away one of those huge weapons. And I don't think you can cover them all, but if you can absolutely shut down one of them, then that gives you a little bit better of a chance. Obviously, the Eagles were no match for that team, but that's going to be, I think, the MO of defenses going forward is whoever you think is going to be, the bigger threat, put the double team on them, and then the Chiefs have to figure it out from there. And this week, I think that was Travis Kelce.
And now with the addition of Josh Gordon, who everybody's saying looks great and is in great shape, that's just going to add even more pressure to these defenses.
Yep.
And we don't usually talk about defenses as far as our booms and busts, but I do want to make note that the Buffalo Bills had 21 points on fantasy. They allowed 0 points in real life, and they got 4 interceptions against the Texans. Texans better watch out because they got the Pats next, and that defense, if they play the way they did against the Bucks, that's going to be another rough game for the Texans.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're on the topic of defenses, if you're like me and you were one of those people that drafted Washington football team defense as your defense, start looking elsewhere. They played the Atlanta Falcons and gave up 34 points. They did make a touchdown, which gave them some points. But when you give up that many points to the Falcons, I mean, I understand they do have the ability to put up some points, but they should have had a better showing than that. That defense is severely overrated this year. Definitely start looking elsewhere because I think this is going to continue. I think this was the game for them to have a good defensive showing, and it didn't happen. So if you're relying on them to put up some numbers for you, start looking elsewhere. There's probably some defenses out there that are doing a little bit better, at least.
Yeah. You and I are kind of in the same boat because I have them in another league, and I quickly made the change to get the Arizona Cardinals defense. I think that's worked out pretty well for us in that regard.
Yeah.
But tonight on Monday Night Football, we have the Raiders at the Chargers, and I need an absolute miracle to pull off a win in fantasy. I do have guys available in this game, though, that can put up some big points in a hurry. I've got Austin Eckler. I've got Keenan Allen, and I also have my kicker is the Chargers kicker. So I could post some points, but I'm also playing against a guy that has Jacobs, Waller, and Renfro. So he's got players available too. So I've got to hope that my guys have stellar games and his guys just post mediocre points.
Yeah.
Not looking good for the champ.
Right. Yeah, it sucks. I definitely give the nod here to the Chargers. They've been one of the better teams in the entire league. Their defense is legitimate. Justin Fields is legitimate. It's going to be tough for the Raiders this game, but I do think that it's going to be an interesting game. At least I hope it's going to be interesting.
You mean Herbert, not Fields?
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry. Speaking of the Raiders, the phenomenon of Derek Carr doing as well as he has been wild to watch.
Yeah. We talked earlier about Kyler Murray being an MVP candidate. Carr's in that conversation as well. He's having himself a pretty phenomenal year so far. Hopefully the Los Angeles Chargers defense can give him a reality check and keep him down so that he's not able to get the ball to Waller and Renfro. And, I know Jacobs was a little bit questionable coming in, so maybe he's not at 100% and isn't going to score for him. Of course, I'm just cheering for my fantasy team at this point, but It is what it is. I do think that the Chargers will come out on top, though.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're a legitimate team this year. I think they proved that whenever they played the Chiefs. Completely solid team. It's interesting that the two LA teams, I think everyone thought that the Rams were going to be the king and the Chargers were just going to be kind of there. But I think the Chargers are right up there as one of the good teams of that division. It's a tough division, I think, too, because the Raiders, at least right now, are doing well. I think that's going to end. Obviously, you've got the Chiefs to deal with, and now the Chargers are a legitimate team. So that's a pretty strong division right there.
And the Broncos have actually been one of the surprise teams of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the AFC West is definitely flexing some muscles.
Yeah.
You got anything else you want to add, partner?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. Hopefully, if you didn't get any of your fantasy football questions answered this week, throw us some questions on Twitter, here, wherever. And we'll definitely cover those on our next Champ to Champ show, which is Saturday.
Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be here delivering the best fantasy football content on the internet, and we will be helping you win your league. Till then, we'll see you next time, I guess, here on Monday nights for the Nest podcast. We'll be talking a little bit of baseball playoffs next week as well. So that's going to be pretty fun and pretty exciting. We'll see you then. We out.